You were at an event yesterday, I believe. What do you make of these events pre-fights? I kind of wonder if the fighters really want to be there. I was looking at photos of Jermaine Franklin, and he looked like he wanted to be anywhere else but an event 5 days before the biggest fight of his life.
Well, look, I was there last night at the Art Hotel at the Battersea Power Station. It was a fantastic event, actually. You know, it was 4 hours with a DJ, and I'd say Anthony Joshua or AJ was on fantastic form. The only person I've ever had to lean into to hear what they're saying in comparison to Jermaine Taylor's very, very quietly spoken man is Katie Taylor. You literally have to lean in to hear what he's saying. But he's very cool, calm and collected. Every time I've interviewed him, I've found him that way. I think I've interviewed him 4 times now, if I include the times when he came out, the time when he came over to fight Dillian Whyte. He's really up for it.
Yeah.
He's preying on the spectre of Andy Ruiz, even though he says he's a different type of style. He thinks AJ may struggle with the shorter, smaller guys. He's 6'2", though. He's not a small guy, but he's certainly 22 pounds lighter than he was when he fought Dillian Whyte. I spoke to his fitness coach, Lorenzo, yesterday, and his trainer, Jesse. They're really up for this. And Jermaine looked just cool about it all, as was AJ, by the way. Very cool himself yesterday. They didn't look like they didn't want to be there, to use a double negative. Or I can just say they looked happy to be there. It was a short red carpet, very narrow on the other side. I did the sneaky thing for talkSPORT and got on the other side of the red carpet so I could get my interviews properly.
As you do.
As one does. And it was a good night. It was interesting, and I think there's a feeling that the pressure's off AJ, but whether it really is off him, I don't know.
Yeah, look, we're going to hear from AJ, the former unified heavyweight champion, a bit later. A lot of people have been talking about his size. You saw him up close and personal. Does he look physically a lot bigger? Some people have said he looks as big as he did against Carlos Takam. Is he that big?
I mean, he looks massive in compared to Franklin. You know, I mean, there's apparently only 4 inches in height difference, but Jermaine is more of a crouched character, and he has his hat on, and he's got his kind of his fatigues on. You know, he always looks ready for action. He's a very likable man, by the way, Jermaine Taylor, as is AJ. When he's in this mood and he's giving time, when you think about it, you know, AJ in this camp has done, I think he's done 3 media calls. That's it. He did the press conference in West London. He did a Zoom call last week, and he did this. Well, actually, it's 2, because he did. This is the start of fight week. Fight week proper, I suppose, begins Wednesday with the press conference. But you can count this: 5 assignments in the whole build-up. But as Fraser Clark said to me, rightly so, he's done the right thing going to Dallas. I've done a big piece in the Telegraph today. They put AJ chopping wood on the front page of Sport, and there's a big double-page spread in which I've spoken to loads of people about how AJ has created a different new dawn, as they're calling it, the changes. I've spoken to Freddie Cunningham and Andy Bell. I've spoken to Eddie Hearn and Fraser Clark, to Derek James. Who else have I spoken to? Basically everyone around him for this fight. Joe Markowski about the DAZN deal. And as Fraser Clark said, he's done exactly the right thing. No Twitter, no Facebook, no Instagram. As Marvin Hagler used to say, go into prison when you go into camp. And that's what he's done for this. He looks big. He said he's gone through torture with Derek James. Derek was telling me last night, I had a great chat with him, Eddie. And he said that there are times when he's had Anthony Joshua doing 15 minutes non-stop, boxing and on the pads. 15 minutes non-stop. And then all these sparring sessions. And AJ says he absolutely loved it. He looks big. He looks like a bruiser. Hopefully he'll be brutal come Saturday night.
Let's hear from the former unified heavyweight champion, Anthony Joshua. He spoke with Gareth A. Davis and started by saying people expect him to KO Franklin easy. Not as easy as people think, though.
There's a process. Yeah. There's a process. Like, I don't think anyone's ever, well, there's a few people, but at a certain level, it's hard to go into the ring and knock someone out within like 10 seconds. So there's a process to kind of getting that knockout, which I have to be disciplined.
Because weirdly, the non-boxing aficionados, and you do cross over enormously into the mainstream, not the prism of just boxing, People think he's just there for someone to knock out, but he's no mug, is he?
I think that's crazy, but I understand. There's high expectations, right?
Yeah.
People put their own expectations on other people, and people put me in high regard. So that's where the pressure comes from, is me having to deliver, which I understand, and I'll do my best for sure.
Last 12 fights have been world title fights. This isn't.
Yeah.
And it's not in a stadium. I think 10 of those have been in stadiums.
Yeah.
Or 9 of them. Does that change anything, or does it not for you?
Yeah, definitely. This is kind of an indication of where you're at. This is like a fight, because it's like, let's strip it back to when we was getting towards the title. You're moving in that direction again. So this is like fights where it's like, all right, I'm in contention. I'm a contender to get to the championship. So I've got to fight like I'm leading towards that. Like the champions have got to look at me and say, yeah, he's a serious contender coming up. So that's how that feels now. And in terms of performance, just go out there and do my best and do it better than anyone else.
Anthony Joshua in good spirits there, it sounds, Gareth, speaking to yourself yesterday at the launch event, if you like, for Fight Week on Saturday. He seems in a good place, AJ. I mean, you've spoken about this before, like sometimes he can be a bit, I wouldn't say put off by the media, but it almost feels like he's done this sort of rodeo, if you like, 100 times, knows what to say, knows the answers, almost on autopilot. I feel like that's not the same this time with AJ. He feels like seems like he's in a different space.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget, he's one of the most, if you think about how brilliant British journalism is in general, he's one of the most scrutinised athletes in the world, in my view, and he has been for the last 10 years. I mean, I think what you've got to look at is, someone in his position who's won an Olympic super heavyweight gold in his own home city. I mean, the elevation. When you speak to people like Freddie Cunningham and Andy Bellew who are looking at his commercial interest, we often look, and boxing fans do, and the boxing media look through the prism of a very narrow motorway, if you like, with just 2 lanes, or like a dual carriageway, 2 lanes rather than 8 lanes, which is the mainstream. And in the mainstream, I think people are still fascinated by him as a character. And his commercial opportunities, they tell me, are still enormous. The requests for him are huge. So all he needs is the optics, I believe, of a very powerful victory. People won't be satisfied if he goes 12 rounds, and wins convincingly in a wide points decision. They won't be satisfied either if he knocks Jermaine Franklin out in 2 rounds. He'll be damned if he does, and he'll be damned if he doesn't.
You think?
I
The latter.
think so, because Jermaine Franklin, there's always 2 ways at looking at boxing. If he knocks him out early, people say, yeah, but he's number 35 in the world. Yeah. If he goes 12 rounds and people say, yeah, but, look, he's lost the old destroyer. He does need that in a way, but there's a feeling around him, and he's purported to be like this at the moment, that there's less pressure off. Remember, this is his first non-title fight for 12 fights. He did 12 in a row. So in a sense, he just needs to win. And then he's got, for me, the 3 big fights left. Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, Joyce. He doesn't need to do anything more after that. It doesn't matter if he loses them all, apart from this one against Jermaine Franklin.
Can I, are you surprised by the ticket sales for this one? Has that come as a bit of a shock to you? Bear in mind, a couple of years ago, you could have said Anthony Joshua could fight me or you, and it would sell out Wembley. He felt like he had that kind of star power. Are you surprised that it hasn't sold out as yet?
Well, listen, he would have sold out a lot quicker for me than you, because a lot of people would like to see him beat me up. But yes, I get your point. But and listen, I would pay to see him beat you up as well.
I'll take a dive. I'll take a dive.
I'm not staying there long against him. That man is a giant. That is there's weight divisions for a reason.
There is, sir.
Look, I think Eddie's pulled me up on this, because someone sent me about a month ago that ticket sales weren't going quickly, I believed. Eddie's pulled me up on this, Eddie Hearn, his promoter, and said, no, we sold a lot of tickets early on, and there's only a couple of hundred left now.
Okay.
Look, the veracity of this will be borne out on Saturday night. I think it'll be completely full. I've always said that as well. Come fight night, I thought it would always be full. They didn't push this fight out in a big way either. It's kind of gone under the radar. They're not trying to do the big sell. I think they knew they could sell 20,000 seats. Does it surprise me? No, because this is a restoration fight. This is a restoring of what he had before. They are calling it the new dawn, aren't they?
Yeah.
And in many ways, I think they've done that to take the pressure off him. They're not going to sell 40,000 seats for him fighting Jermaine Franklin. His resonance has changed with that fight public that go to his fights. And also, if you recall, a lot of people that go to the stadium fights, I don't think it's a bit like this for Tyson Fury now, go for the occasion, to be there, to say, I was there when. And like,
I just wonder if it's a reflection on what you said earlier about that maybe we haven't heard from AJ in the last 4 or 5 months. I think you mentioned there's only been 3 or 4 media sort of opportunities. So if there's only been 3 or 4 media opportunities, I guess fans aren't hearing from either. And I just wonder if that's a reflection on that as to why maybe the tickets haven't sold, because it does feel like it's less AJ in the last sort of 7 or 8 months than it's ever have been.
Yeah, that is definitely the case, and they haven't sold it hard. But look what they've also done. This is the first bona fide event for him in the UK on DAZN. They've created the Sky Channel opportunity. It's channel 429 on the Sky platform. That's definitely built around AJ. He's still so marketable in those terms. I mean, Joe Markowski said to me this week that is part of their strategy. In this article that's out today, it's very interesting when you hear people around him talk about him. They're not talking fluff. They're talking about what a big commercial entity he still is. I don't think we've got him for much longer. I'd say year and a half at the most.
Yeah, what is he, 33 now? I'd say 4 fights max.
But also, his desire is one more push. I mean, I do really hope that they can get the Tyson Fury fight over the line. And as Eddie Hearn was telling me last night, that is a realistic possibility, but don't hold your breath. But they would like to have the Tyson Fury fight in the summer.
Yeah. All right, let's hear from his opponent Saturday night, Jermaine Franklin. Gareth caught up with him as well.
It's easy. It's a little easier to get under the big guys. It's just you have to watch for certain punches. But I noticed he does this little collar type thing, and he holds behind the head and throws the uppercut. As long as the ref does his job and protect me on that, we're okay. It's an easy job to get in there.
Jermaine Franklin, as Gareth said, softly spoken about. Looks like he's coming to do damage. A lot lighter than he was against Dillian Whyte. Obviously, the comparisons have been made mainly physically because of his similar appearance to Andy Ruiz. But I guess, there is a sort of proof in the pudding. AJ does struggle with smaller guys. You think of Carlos Takam, that could have gone all the way until the ref jumped in. Andy Ruiz defeat as well. So maybe there is something in that, where the bigger guy has to almost chop down or maybe make himself smaller to fight the smaller guy. Maybe they're seeing something in that, and that's what Jermaine Franklin's team are looking at.
Yeah, I mean, as he points out himself there, that he's got a completely different style to Jermaine Franklin. He's much more of a boxer.
Andy Ruiz.
Sorry?
He's got a completely different style to Andy Ruiz.
He's got a completely different style, completely different type of boxer. He believes that he's got the hand speed and the abilities to get inside with AJ, which he's got to do anyway. They know that AJ is going to explode on him. They know what Derek James does as a coach. He's going to be encouraging, as you mentioned earlier, the size of AJ. His arms look big. He always looks big anyway. I mean, he's a huge man.
He does.
And he's going to exchange with him. And he believes, as he says, I'm going to put him on his ass. And that's what he's got to try and do, expose AJ's weaknesses that are shown in the past. Andy Ruiz put him down. Klitschko put him down. Usyk didn't put him down, remember? And Usyk's a decent puncher. But what I like about Franklin is he's really got into shape. I say Lorenzo and Jesse, his conditioning coach and his trainer, have absolute confidence in him. Look what happened. He came over here. I was live that night. I was at the arena live to watch him fight Dillian Whyte. And he shocked all of us. We thought Whyte was going to blow him away. Whyte was off colour that night, really, in my view. It wasn't his best performance. He only came strong late in the fight. You could have scored it 7-5 for Jermaine Franklin. I saw it was a very close affair that White just pipped. But he proved something. He came off a loss. His stock rose. And he's here again. This is a massive opportunity for him. No wonder he's taking it so seriously. And as we know, if he can get in and under AJ, he could give him some terror moments. That's why Eddie Hearn says he's nervous about this contest.
Yeah, I spoke to Jermaine Franklin's team yesterday night, and they were saying, looking at the size of AJ's obviously come to try and knock him out. And they said, what happens if AJ gets past 5 or 6 with that much extra size and hasn't knocked him out? That's when they think potentially they could take over the fight. All right, let's hear from Eddie Hearn now, matchroom promoter. This is what he had to say regarding AJ's fight. He thinks it's the biggest fight of AJ's career.
Oh, I mean, when you look back, I mean, there's been some massive fights, haven't they? But this fight, all of a sudden, you think, well, this might be the most important. All the pressure on AJ to not just win, but win in style. And you've got Jermaine Franklin next to me, all of a sudden lost 22 pounds, comes in with a six-pack, and thinks, if I beat AJ, I'm going to change my life forever, as Andy Ruiz did, as all these guys that try and beat him do. You know, I guess there are some doubts over AJ after the Usyk fight and the reaction, particularly in the ring after and at the press conference. But he's motivated and he's made a lot of sacrifices for this camp, and I hope he gives the performance he deserves.
Is it, Gareth? They always said it, don't they? The next fight's always the biggest. Is it the biggest? Is this bigger than Andy Ruiz 2? When everything was on the line if he lost again to Andy Ruiz. How big is this one? Is this the biggest fight? I guess it's win or bust, isn't it? If he loses, that's probably it. So I guess by saying that, it probably is the biggest.
I think every fight he has is big. Make no question about it. Because, as I say, the scrutiny of what he does is enormous. Whenever he fights, he commands the attention of every media outlet or every news outlet, of every radio broadcast outlet. All the mainstream follow him. And as I say, that's the trampoline effect of being an Olympic super heavyweight champion. Go back in time, and these guys at that weight have always gone on to be big stars, from your Vladimir Klitschko's to your Muhammad Ali's, to all the guys through the past, you know, and in other weights as well, from your Sugar Ray Leonard's, your Oscar De La Hoya's. You know, they've been stars of the sport, and I think there is a certain amount riding on this, because if he doesn't beat Jermaine Franklin, he probably won't have the appetite. It won't be the end of the world, but he won't have the appetite to come back again. He might. Look, he's as he said yesterday, F everyone when I retire. I'm just going to go and enjoy myself and enjoy my money. Let's enjoy him while we can. Let's hope. I don't wish anything bad on Jermaine Franklin, but you know, let's hope Anthony Joshua does a demolition job on Saturday night. He calls out Tyson Fury. Fury responds, and they start these talks again. I know everyone's sighing hearing that, but you know, these guys have been on off a couple of times. But it will be a brilliant thing to, weirdly in boxing, a door closes. I know we're going to talk about Fury Usyk. A door closes and then another door opens. If we get Fury against Anthony Joshua at Wembley Stadium late this summer, I think it'll be the biggest event we will have in boxing in our lifetime.